Hello, welcome back to another one of these videos. If you recall, last time we made it to hashtag, which is the last main variant. There's technically this, which is just all the combinations. You can see there are a lot of them. There's also this, which is just, I think actually I went over this last time. It's just hashtag with like an additional left side variant attached. Now we're going to go over some of the unique variants. We're going to start with, I think, the simplest of them all, really, mini cross. Let's go and get into what it is. If you recall last time from cross, rather not last, it was a while ago, but if you recall what cross clues are, this will be pretty similar. Basically, each clue just tells you how many mines there are within one orthogonal cell of it. So for instance, you can see like here for this 3 clue, there are 3 near it. It's kind of similar to the cross clues, but those extend 2 out in each direction, whereas these extend 1. And I would say that this is probably the easiest variant in the game. We'll kind of go over a puzzle of this, and then we're probably just going to do some combinations for the rest of it so it has some complexity, but here we go. Okay, so that 0 clue is finished, so is this 2 clue right here, so is this 4 clue as well. That finishes off this 3 clue, and this 2 clue is also finished, as is this one. That 0 clue is done, and now we've kind of reached a point where we might need to spend a little bit of time thinking. First of all, we know there's going to be at least 1 mine in here, just because of this clue is a 2 clue. Same thing can be said here. This tells us there's exactly 1 mine in each of these 2 kind of like diagonal pairs of cells. So that tells us for this 2 clue here, there must be a mine here, and for this one down here, critically, there's a mine down there, which then finishes off this 1 clue. This 2 clue is now finished, as is this one, so is this 1 clue, so is this 2 clue, and this 1 clue, and this 0 clue, and this 1 clue, and that 1 clue. That 0 clue is done. Now I can finish off this 3 clue, which will finish off this 2 clue, and as you can see, we have 5 cells left and 5 mines left. There we go. And like, you can really go through those puzzles pretty quickly, I think. There are like a very few patterns that you can kind of do with mini cross. As you can see here, I have actually finished off all of the ones for 5x5 and 6x6 of the harder variants. Just because there aren't a lot of them, we'll go ahead and go over, oh yeah, because there's like 4 of these, we'll go and go over a harder puzzle real quick. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we can start by noticing this 0 clue is finished, as is this 2 clue, and really all of those clues, and these ones as well, which finishes off this 1 clue, and this 0 clue, and this 2 clue, and this 0 clue. There we go. Okay, and we can see through the same kind of logic as before. We know there's 1 mine in those 2 cells. That tells us for this 2, there's a mine right here. Something else we can kind of notice is we can see that this 1 clue requires 1 mine in this group right here, as does this 1 clue. You can kind of see, and this is like the main pattern for this one really, is like there's kind of a ring here where we know that there will be 1 mine now on each of these, right? Because if we imagine that the mines for this 1 clue, for instance, one of them is like over here. If we then say that there isn't a mine in this region, so you see there's like a mine there or something, we can actually see that we have now overloaded this 1 clue. So this can kind of tell us just that neither of these can be mines. And that like kind of ring structure actually comes up a lot, especially in the harder puzzles for this variant. Anyway, that 2 clues finished, this 2 clues finished, both of these ones are finished, as is that 2 clue, and I'm just clicking through clues that were already finished. And we can see here now there's 1 mine left, and that mine must be in one of these 2 to finish off this 2 clue, thus that cannot be a mine. There we go. Puzzle's finished. So yeah, you can see mini crosses. Yeah, it's a nice time. Anyway, I think. Oh no, yeah, you can see I also finished up all the mini cross puzzles for 6x6. Rather, mini cross quad for 6x6. I think I did. Yeah, I did that for this as well. Anyway, we can go ahead and, I guess other than this, I'll run through some of the combinations. I guess I'll start with snake since I haven't done it yet. Okay, so we can start by noticing these clues are all just finished, and that actually finishes up this 1 clue as well. Okay, here we go. Now we can first kind of consider what happens if we put a clue over here. Right, because that finishes off both of these clues, and we know from last time that there's a snake-like parity argument where we can see if this lines up properly. Okay, so this one actually does. It doesn't have a problem being over there, which is good to know. I guess one other thing we can kind of consider, I think we'll run into the same thing here, but if we try to put a mine up there, yeah, we have the correct parity still. So that's good to know, is that we don't actually necessarily have information on whether either of these mines specifically is or is not a mine. Okay, so what that tells us then is if this one isn't a mine, maybe we can derive something from that. I don't know. Looks unlikely. Maybe another good place to look. I guess we can consider what happens in this kind of scenario. If this one here isn't a mine, this one up here is a mine. Right, because then we know it, yeah, I think we've run into a problem where we know it needs to go down here to this corner to satisfy this one, but then it can't get back up here to kind of finish off this area. Right, so then we would know that it needs to instead go like this way, but we kind of run into the same problem where since it's like a 2 by 1 rectangle, the snake can't actually escape there. That tells us that this one must be a mine. There we go. Okay, we can now kind of consider what happens in, I guess, this case right here, where we then, well, first of all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we know that since, once again, it can only go out of this square one way, we know it can't go out like this way. That would cause a parity argument issue, so we know it has to go out this way. But then we kind of run into the same problem where it needs to head over here and loop back around, so we can also know that one is a mine. And then we know this one's a non-mine just from normal snake logic, as is this one. That 3 clues finished now. Okay, so now we can kind of consider what happens parity-wise if this one isn't a mine, then we get an incorrect amount. Well, I guess no, we just have to continue out there, so that's not actually necessarily a problem. I guess we can see if this is like tenable though. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope, it can't make it over to this one in time. And of course, if instead it starts by going over here, same problem we've outlined before. So we know that this one right here must also be a mine. There we go, that one clue's finished, as is that one. Now we have a 2 clue here. We can kind of consider some of the possible pairings. First of all, if we have this, then parity works out, but we're not able to really make room to get over to this one, just because this is like a minimum amount. So we know that this one up here must be a mine. Now, I guess we can also notice that if this one is a non-mine, this snake can just never make it over to this 1 clue or the rest of this 2 clues. So we know this one must be a mine, and then in order to avoid loops, we can mark this as a non-mine, and this, I think, is going to more or less solve the puzzle for us. Yep, there we go. That's just kind of from standard deductions and from the clue being finished. Did not mean to back out of that, that's okay. I guess from here we can continue just to go through these ones again, I guess, for the remainder of this video. And maybe I don't know, maybe I'll go unlock the 7 by, well, no, it's going to take some time. Maybe I'll redo one of the quad mini-cross puzzles if we need more. We can see. Okay. Also, if you don't recall any of these variants, I guess they're kind of described up there, but you can also go back and rewatch the video they came from. There's no shame. Anyway, real quick, all I've done is just kind of click through some clues that were just already finished. If we now consider, I guess, if this one were a non-mine, then we can see that... Okay, well, we know that one of these two, in this case, will have to be a mine, just because this group kind of needs to leave through one of those 2 areas, so we then know neither of these are mines. Of course, we can then kind of see for this one, it can either go out to the left or to the right. If it goes out this way, then it has to, like, still loop around this 1 too many times, so we know it must go up there. Now, in the alternative, we can consider this one right here is a mine. I think we're actually going to see, yeah, that it can't leave through this area anymore to overload the 1, so it has to kind of sneak up this way. But what this critically tells us is that neither of these are mines in both cases, so we can just erase those, and now here we go. Now that we know this one's a 1, we know that the yellow case is not going to work, so we can go ahead and just mark all of what we've shown for the red case so far. We also know it needs to go through there because it's like a choke point, so there we are. Okay. What we also now know is that these 2 groups have to connect up. They can either do it kind of like through this region here, or by going around this one. Of course, I think it should be fairly easy to see. Going around this one's going to cause problems. It'll overload it. So we know it needs to kind of go through this diagonal area. One thing we can kind of note with that is that's always going to require it to hit one of the cells in each of these regions. Or a more, I guess, an easier way to kind of understand this. It's going to have to go through both of these, right? There isn't really a way around that. What that tells us then is that one of these cells and one of these 2 cells must be a mine. So we know for this 1 clue neither of these are mines. That 0 clue is finished. Okay. Now I think we can see that we have 6 total mines left. We have 1 mine in these squares, 1 mine in these squares, and then we have 4 remaining squares. So we can mark all of these ones as mines. And then, I guess lastly we can consider, if this one's a mine, then we actually kind of run into a problem where it can't sneak through here. So instead we can see this one has to be a mine, and then this one down here has to be a mine for it to kind of go through. So there we go. That's going to look gross. Oh well, I guess they still have some. We can now continue on to triplet mini-cross. Okay, we can mark both of these, first of all, as mines, and... Alright, this one might actually require some thinking. We'll see. Okay, so first of all, we know for this 2 there are 3 possibilities. The first one is this. And we can see something that's probably actually going to crop up for a few of these. Maybe not, I don't know. Is we can see here this 2 only has 3 open cells left. 1 mine at most can be here, so we know there must be a mine here at least. We can also mark both of these as non-mines. There we go. Okay. And also that one. Next we can consider this case where we can once again see, yeah, that this one here is a non-mine. And it looks like also in the last case, you can fairly trivially see that that is also a non-mine. I'll go and mark these as well, though, for completeness. So there we go. Okay. Now we can actually see that in the blue case, we've kind of run into a problem where this 2 clue is finished, but that implies that there must be 2 mines here, which overloads the 1. So we know the blue case cannot be accurate. That tells us that there is 1 mine up here. There we go. Okay, and I can just get rid of our marks now. This finishes up. We need to know that 1 clue is finished, this 2 clue is finished, so is this 1 and that 0, and this 1 and this 2. Okay. Cool. We also now know that there must be exactly 1 mine in these 2, so there must be 1 mine there. Neither of these are thus mines. That 2's finished, this 1's finished. Same argument as before, kind of, really, to mark that in. This 2's now finished, this 0's finished, this 1's finished. Okay. Cool. And we might now be running into a point where the remaining mine count is relevant. Yeah, we have. There's 1 mine in this group from this 1 clue, and this 1 clue also tells us there's 1 mine in this group. We can see we have 5 remaining mines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And from triplet rules, we can kind of just finish this up. So there we are. Okay. Next, we will do outside mini-cross. Here we go. These clues are all finished. Or to avoid checkerboard, we can put 1 there. Same here. And, okay. We can actually also see that this 2 clue has a forced checkerboard here if we don't put a mine up here. So there we are. That gives us 1 mine here, 1 mine here. Cool. Okay. I guess the next thing to kind of consider is how this group is going to leave here. It will only do it by going through these cells. Same with this group, has to go up there, and there we go. That's going to give us some more information. Okay. Next, we can consider which of these 2 cells for the 2 has to be filled in. If this one appears filled in, then we get both of these. We also know this one can't be filled in to avoid a checkerboard. Yeah, there we go. So then the mines have to leave here, but as you can see, this is going to... Oh, no, actually, no, it doesn't bisect the group. Never mind, that's all good. And we can see what happens if this one appears a mine instead. Okay, I don't know, this is going to give us a lot, really. I guess we can see in this case, there must be a non-mine up here, which tells us that there can't be a mine here to avoid checkerboards, so these ones must be mines. And that's just because we'd have a checkerboard otherwise. And that gives us that there is 1 mine down here, just from the fact that this one's marked. So we know this one's always a mine, and we also know this one's a non-mine in the yellow case as well. Okay, and we can see that these must be the case as well. This 3 is also finished. We can mark all of that. Get rid of those, and no, not that mark. That mark is actually important. Okay. So we can just kind of see this. And I guess, yeah, in the red case, we also get this one as a non-mine, because this group needs to head up through there in the red case. So we can mark that and that. There we are. Okay. Now, as we can see, we have 2 mines left. I'm trying to see if there's any way we can, like, guarantee this. Yes, actually, never mind. I see the red case has 3 mines in it, so we know it's not that one. There we are. Okay. Next, we'll move on to dual. Here we go. We can start by noticing that if there's not a mine here, I wonder if this will run into any problems. Maybe not. Doesn't necessarily look like it. One thing we can see is if there's a mine there instead, we will still get a mine down here, so we can mark that. And, okay, this is a fairly common pattern. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think it'll be relevant. Where we can see for dual, and this kind of crops up with cross as well, but mostly with, like, mini cross or normal sometimes. We can see that this one's going to have to extend in one of these 2 directions. Either way, it hits the 1 mine for this 1 clue, so we know this is not a mine. And here we go, we can just kind of continue to solve this puzzle, just kind of clicking through some of these clues. One thing we can kind of notice is I'm just going to run through the 3 possible cases and specifically keep an eye on this cell up here. That's one for the 1, and then if there's a red one here, well actually it's just 2, because we already know if you don't recall, there's an argument that can be made for a mine in the corner of dual and the mine that's diagonally adjacent to it, right up there. Yeah, I outlined that in my other video. But we can see that this mine that cell is never a mine, so there we are. And we can also see that in any of our 2 cases, one of these 2 mines will be filled in. The other one's more specific, but that's okay. That just tells us this one appears a non-mine. We can now finish up at 0. We can see the same argument applies here with this one. That's just a standard piece of knowledge for really just, yeah, dual in general, but also it's like relevant if you just know there has to be a mine in one of those 2 squares for dual. And, okay. So I guess now we can kind of consider our remaining, I guess, mine count. We know we have 3 dominoes left since we have 6 mines. We can kind of maybe do some casework to see where the dominoes can be, right? So this is just under our assumption that it starts up there for that 1 clue. Then we know that these must be filled in. And this is just to satisfy all of the clues, right? So this is one complete, I guess, image of dominoes for this. And then in this next case, we could actually see that they're exactly the same if we just have that. And if we instead put one over here, then we can once again see that this one here needs to be a domino. So we know this will always be 1. We can mark off all of those. We can see in this last case, the last domino must look like this. So there we are. And this clue will probably help us disambiguate. There we go. Puzzle is finished now. So cool. We'll move on now to, I already did one for mini cross snake. I might do one again later to make this just all 2s, but whatever. Now we'll do one for balance. Here we go. Okay, this 3 clues finished, and since we're on a 6x6 board, each of the columns and rows have to have 2 mines specifically, so we can mark off all those. Okay. Now something we can kind of see here real quick is we know that there will be at least 1 mine in one of these 2 cells, and the reason for that is we know there's going to be 1 mine in both of these groups. If there are no mines in either of them, then we have to overload this column, so what we can get is there's at least 1 mine here. We can also notice with this 2 that there's at least 1 mine there. That tells us that there is exactly 1 mine in both of these. The remaining mine for this group has to be over there. And thus we can kind of make some deductions just based on the fact that we know where the mines are for this column. And this row is also now finished, so there we are. One additional thing we can notice here is there's 1 mine here. I don't know, that gives us a lot, not necessarily. Maybe it'll be better to think about, yeah, this. Okay, so here, we'll get rid of these marks, we don't need them for now. So you can notice that there's going to be 1 mine up here for this 1 clue. What that also tells us is that one of these 2 clues will be satisfied. We know the other one cannot have a mine up there to overload the 1, so its remaining mine must be one of these 2. As you can see here, this leaves us with 1 remaining cell for our last mine, so there we go. And we now know, once again from this, that our column is finished just with 1 mine in there. So we can mark off both of these. This 1 clue is now done. And we get the last mine for this row right there. There we go. We can also kind of see from a similar argument as before that both of these rows, like this one and this one, are finished just from these 2 clues, so we can mark all of these as such. This is standard mini cross logic. As before, we know that the last mine for this 2 must be right there, so that allows us to finish off a lot of these clues. We can also, here, I'll go ahead and put back this mark since it's still relevant. We know there's 1 mine here, the last mine must be over there, and this actually is just going to finish up the puzzle for us. There we are. Okay, cool. I guess here, for fun, we got time. I'll do another one of these. I'll also run through a quad one. Maybe I'll do one of the easier ones just so it's one I haven't seen yet. I don't know. Okay. So we can see this 2 has 3 possibilities. We actually know this one's going to be impossible because it has to overload this 1. So we can actually just already make the deduction that that one's right there. We know that needs to leave through there. That one just can't be a cell because it's not part of a snake. So there we are. Okay, we can now consider the possibilities for this 2. First of all, if there are mines in all of these positions, then we know this group must go out through here. And I think that's really about it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that tells us that there must be 1 here. We knew it couldn't go up there already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, this combination is actually impossible. It makes the snake too small. And there really isn't a way to extend it just because, here, this kind of pattern is, or this kind of snake is forced just from this one clue. So we know this one must be a mine. From snake logic, we know that can't be a mine, and that gives us a decent amount of information. So there we are. Okay. So now I guess let's consider what happens if this one down here is a mine. Then we know that it has to specifically loop through this cell to go down there, so we get this kind of structure, right? And we can see that's actually one too long, so we then know that this one here must also be a mine. There we are. Okay. We can also notice from what I talked about earlier in this video that if it bends this corner, it can't actually escape, so we know that it cannot do that. It has to loop around this way. It also tells us all of these must be mines. We're now at a point where we have 2 mines left. If this one right here is a non-mine, then it has to go around here. That gives us 3 non-mines, or 3 mines rather, where we only have 2 left, so we can mark that one as a mine. And we can lastly finish up the snake down there. So there we go. We'll lastly do a quad mini cross one, and we'll see if I have some left on the harder or easier difficulties. Yeah, I do. We'll do a big one. You know what? We can have a good time with this. The deductions will probably be easier though because it's not an exclamation mark. That's okay. So first of all, this 3 one's finished. We know by quad logic there must be a mine there. This one's also finished. We now know by quad logic that there must be at least 1 mine in each of these groups. We can kind of just continue this path downwards because they all form boxes, so we know there must be the last 2 mines with 3 right there. We can also similarly see by quad logic there must be 1 mine in each of these squares, and specifically these cells. That tells us that these mines are both contained within this kind of area right here, so this one up here is not a mine. Now that 2 clues finished, so there we go. Okay. Now, I guess the next thing to consider is, well, I guess really where to go from here. Okay, I'll go and get rid of these for now. They don't think they're going to be super useful. One thing we can kind of notice, though, is that well, no, not actually necessarily. Never mind. Okay. I guess we can consider what happens if we make some of these ones non-mine specifically. Never mind, we don't have to consider that. We have a 2x2 grid here with 1 area for a mine right there, so we can mark that one as finished. There we go. That's just from the fact that we needed a mine in this box right there. So that 3's done, this 2's done, this 0's done, this 2 is also finished, as is this 2, and this 0. Both of these are the kind of pattern we were talking about just right there again, so we can mark that. 0's finished, boom, boom. That one's done. There we go. This is just kind of stemming from the same logic that we have shown throughout this puzzle. Like right there is another one of those 2x2 grids, so we can mark all of those, and we can see that just for kind of clicking through clues that were just finished as soon as we discovered them. We have now finished the puzzle. There are no mines left, so there we go. Okay. I think that'll do it for this video. Next time we're going to be covering probably one of the more hated variants. So, I'll see you then, I guess. Goodbye.